All right. Welcome to another episode of Distilling the West. I'm your host, Dan, joined by my co host, Dave. And we have episode 100 of the podcast today. And we have a very special guest that we're circling back with, Mark Stell of Bird Creek Distillery. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you back on. We definitely encourage everyone to go back to episode 2 of the podcast. It was our first interview, and want to thank you for taking a chance on us, Mark, and going into uncharted waters of the podcast territory. So we really appreciate that, and it was great to see you at American Craft Spirits Association and touch base with you again and set this interview up. So thanks for joining us, Mark.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, how have you been doing these last couple of years?
Well, we're doing all right. We're plugging along. I'd say, with the exception of the industry itself, there's a little impact on us, but we're still so small that it's hard to feel the full brunt of it. I mean, if we were a lot bigger and more developed, I'm sure we would be in the same boat as everybody else. It's just a tough thing, but since the last time we spoke, we now distribute in Washington State. We do direct distribution. We're starting probably by January of this next year. We'll be distributing in California. We do now, but we don't. We're not really aggressive with it. We don't have enough whiskey, and we're still selling out, which is great. At our volume, it's not hard to sell out, to be honest with you. But I mean, well, maybe it is. I don't know. I say that, and then of course we're not. We used to be the smallest, and now we're that. So we're slowly growing. So, I think that for me personally, going to places like ACSA, ADI, talking to industry people, using our guild here, it certainly helps understand the market more and a little better. That's been a big thing for the last couple of years. I think being new to the industry, not working in the industry before I started the company.
Right.
There's an advantage and a big disadvantage. The advantage is I can do something different, maybe something I know from other businesses that help. And for me, it's been good, and also it's somewhat of a struggle to not know what I should be doing, or the processes that, I might overthink something and not know the easy way to do things, So that's been my main issues, is truly to understand where we're going to go and how we're going to get there.
Well, you've been focusing a lot on your local customers doing whiskey clubs and things like that, right?
Yeah. So we have last year we started our club, and it's not bottle focused. It's literally membership focused. So we have several events. We have 3 tiers of membership, and it's really just local. So it's not national yet, but it will get there. We're going to try to do bottle and, sampling nationally, basically. We're going to try to figure that out. But for us, it's just really a way to keep the engagement of people that are excited about our brand, engaged, and then obviously letting them taste things first, and getting them in the tasting room, and I think our best experience is the top tier, which is the most expensive, but it's also, I think, the best value for what you pay for. So last year we had our first Summit Club, because our Mount Adams is in our bottle, as you can always see our cool little bottle here. So of course we have to have a Summit Club.
Yeah.
And we have an Explorer Club, and it's just kind of neat that the Summit Club, the reason people join is because they're really vested in us. They like where we're going, and I've created a night where we do basically a 3-hour work class on creating a blend. And so when you asked about blends earlier, or when we're talking about some of the things we're doing this year or last year, we did a tasting. Took about 3 hours. They picked a baseline for the whiskey, and we did our top 6 varietals, all different age groups, and we put together a Summit blend, and it turned out excellent. So it's just won bronze and the first competition I ever sent it to, which was, it's a start. I submitted it to 3 more just to see how it does. It's quite good. It actually should have scored higher than that, I was what I think. But they'll be excited that it scored and it did well. And uh, and it turned out I wasn't wrong a couple years ago when we first met, saying I'm a few years away from my best whiskey. I still think I'm a year or two away from my best whiskey because we will have volume of each of our varietal versus one barrel of something where your garlic can blend with it. So, yeah, so we're this year we produced 100 barrels, which we started out 32. So that was, and that was, or we actually started out with 5 our first year, did 2017. So really 2018 is a real volume year. But um, we've tripled our volume in really the last 6 years. So,
That's huge.
which is pretty good for us. We were trying to do 20% a year, bottle or barrel, production. And now we got some volume coming, so which is really what I've been hoping for. Um, we've been so hyper focused on our varietals. It also turns out to be, it's been so unique, and the tastings people experience with the variety tasting, it's I mean, it's been really what's kept us in conversation, but also why people like us. And when we're doing tastings at wherever it is, if it's a club somewhere or a bar or in our tasting room or at Saturday markets here, um, people are always blown away how different whiskeys taste with just different barleys, for single malts. And our barleys seem to be, we haven't had a dud yet, which thank God, knock on wood or whatever, that's then the blessing is that we really had a great run so far. So, um, yeah, I think we're gearing up for a couple good years coming.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And when we first did the interview with you, Dave and I were really American single malt newbies. We hadn't really tried very much. And over the span of, 2+ years that we've been doing the podcast, I think the most common question I get from people is, oh, what's a spirit you recommend? And I, continually come back to Bird Creek and your products, both the juice that's in the bottle, but I mean, a lot of people are looking for that special gift. Your guys's bottling is that. It's just such a beautiful bottle. We have the Baroness here and such just great attention to detail, like the Mount Adams and the compass and the cork. And then, you have like the Bird Creek Trail lat longs on there. So much just great attention to detail across the board. And I think we were kind of talking about how you do all your different varietals of barley. I think it gives it that really craft touch and almost kind of like um, a winery, with all their different varietals. And that's been your focus over the years. So I always come back to Bird Creek when I come to my recommendations because, um, you know, this was kind of one of our first American single malts that we had really gotten into, and it's just really held up as one that we, like I said, continually come back to. And
Yeah. Not
yeah, definitely.
And yeah, Dan, you said Baroness. That was actually the first one we had on the first episode. We're kind of the Branson this time.
Yeah, the Franson, we talk about
Baroness.
yep, we got the Baroness in our glass right now. And then in the episode we did with you, you were talking about how you'll have the Franson eventually. So here we are coming full circle with like the Scott Bear and the Franson and the Purple Egyptian. So I'm just tickled right now that we get to do episode 100 with you, Mark. Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll have you start out with introducing Baroness.
Okay. So when you're drinking our first sample today, it's the Baroness whiskey. This is basically our flagship original barley grown in Washington State. There's only one grower in the country that he has the exclusive rights to it. He's in the Flus and eastern Washington. Really quite spectacularly spectacularly how do I say this? Um, Unique barley. This is really mellow. It's super caramel, vanillas. It almost has zero afterbite. It's what we feel every time we do a tasting. We start with the Baroness because it's just so universally liked. People who don't like single malts or don't like whiskey like this part. This really is quite smooth. Um, the fact that it doesn't have a natural bite or finish um, that's aggressive. That's why it's really well liked at today. Um, the thing I like about this, the grower, he has a fairly a large estate, so he can grow whatever we need. And other people, we're not the exclusive buyer of it, of course. He he's part owner of a malting operation, so they sell quite a bit of malted barley to breweries and distilleries in the Northwest. Um, I'd say we promote him the best, and he loves what we do. And 3 of the last 4 years, this barley for us has won best in category in several competitions. So um, we love this barley.
Yeah, it's very bourbony. Yeah, with that sweetness.
Yeah, definitely get a lot of that sweetness. And I recalled from our first interview with you, you were saying something about the Baroness grain. The distillate from it just does a really great job of also pulling out those wood sugars from the barrel. I think I get a lot of that going on. Yeah,
I think what one of our and we have zero trade secrets, and that's what I'm a firm believer in making sure American single malt is not only good at my distillery, but great nationally. And anybody who looks at a bottle of ours, they know what barley it is, if it's a single estate or whatever, or how many bottles batch it is. The only thing I don't put on there is the type of wood. And best advice I got was of what I like about whiskey in general. I don't like very aggressive oak, and I don't like um, a tan in the oaky finish. So we use exclusively extended age barrels. So that's why most of our whiskeys they're really soft. And what I think with American single malt or barley in particular, especially this barley, it reacts to a really mellow wood. And then I think that's where I think we hit a home run when it comes to how we're aging and and what we're aging in. And we don't have to go so long. Our sweet spot's 4 to 6 years, and sometimes if it can be a little oaky at 6 plus, but um, we're gonna push some years. We're launching this summer with an 8.5 year. It's our second barrel we produce. So unfortunately, it won't make a 10 year. Uh, but I also want to sell some whiskey. So if I waited 10 years, I'd be down to a quarter barrel or something. So
right. Well, this is absolutely fantastic. I like this one a lot. With that sweetness factor, that's definitely right in my wheelhouse. Sitting at 92 proof, and this one's though like a single cast, so all the juice in this bottle's coming from one barrel. Um, yeah, this one knocks it out of the park for me. I love it.
and lately we're going to start producing more single varietals versus single barrels. We will do single barrels when it's really good. I think we've discovered as a young distiller that it's a little more complex when you're using 2 or 3 barrels sometimes. So we like that. It's a way more consistent barrel to barrel. But we're also, you know, now 6 years in selling or 6 year, 8.5 years making whiskey. We're we're we do feel like each of the barleys have been really consistent, especially doing a consistent malt on it. So um, I'm excited about doing. I'd say trying to make it a little bit more consistent with multiple barrels, and then it's not killing our production. So we don't have to make one every month. It's just like we do a couple month run, and it's better for the team here. So
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, if I remember correctly, you're a Scotch drinker primarily. Is that right?
I do like single malt. I think what I liked about my exploration of whiskey. I do like bourbon. I like I like fries, but I think in general, I think what I liked about exploring single malt is that most of the world is single malt, and I love great Japanese whiskey. I love Irish whiskey and Scotch, and I just had this I don't know this appeal that in the U.S. we were missing this really. I think, art of finding great things and distilling it properly and having a good story behind it. When you go on distillery tours in Scotland, there's just a feeling of history and that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, we're like a young, nipping at the heels to these older brands, but it's always the younger companies that come up with something interesting that maybe the older people just haven't had or they can't do because they're so big. Um, and it gives us the opportunity to compete. And I mean, not compete at scale or price, but quality in a way that it's difficult to do because they're too big to do it. Like we can buy very expensive barleys. And if you're a distiller of any size and you're a public company, you're never going to do it. You might do a barrel or two, but really it'll just be a splash. And that's our brand. Our brand is about discovery. That's why we have a compass on the top. It's really finding these unique gems of barleys and every and the science experiment that we're doing is we have the same barrels, yeast, distillation, char levels. The difference is the difference is the terroir on the farm, and it shows up as you're going to try here as we go through these whiskeys. To me, that's the beauty of my background in coffee. It was that finding these for the last 30 years in coffee, it's almost identical to it.
Yeah, definitely. And let's go to our next pour, the Scots Bear. We didn't get to try this one last time, so I'm really looking forward to trying it. It's in at 4 years, 2 months old, 92 proof, also a single varietal here. So we'll pour this.
So
Yeah.
Spare, I'll kind of get into this. This is an exciting one. This is historically one of the most significant barleys in the world. Um, Believe it or not, this is a barley that converted humans from hunter-gatherers to farmers. It created civilizations because of farming. Essentially, this has been found to be on the Orkney Islands as far back as 4000 BCE. And the Scots Bear was one of the barleys that the Romans would plant as they conquered uh, land throughout northern England, and of course they'd plant this everywhere, but it's lasted that long and off the Orkney Islands, which is quite cool. It's also been known to be a Nordic Viking produced barley. That's why it was found on the Orkney Islands, and it's been there ever since. It's a 6-row ancient grain. This is one of those ones that are really difficult. I know some distilleries try to use it in Scotland. I know I've heard rumors Berklade has used it. I heard also that it was not a great experience for him. We figured it out through our malting house that that we needed to do it a certain way. So we make it like a on grain distillation. So it's quite. We were lucky to have some feedback before we started it. It would have been a disaster if we didn't have it. And we've in the past always used 2 distilleries. One, we're doing 1 or 2 barrels, and then we'll do a 5 or 6 barrel run with a bigger distillery. And both of them figured it out pretty quickly, which was great. That's awesome. So to me, this is very mellow caramel. It has like baking spices, and it's such a unique barley. And we were super excited that it has this flavor profile because when you're doing a ancient grain or something that's really difficult, this is an expensive grain. You just don't want it to be bad. And it's shown up. It just won a medal this recently, so we're excited. It just won, I think, gold at the ACSA. So it's just kind of cool.
Yeah, this is a journey in a glass. I'm really liking this. On the nose, I get like a sweet toasted almond, kind of like a marzipan thing going on, and definitely some of that caramel as well. On the taste, it's really fun. It's smooth up front, but then on the back end, you get this nice. I hesitate to even call it a spice, but it's more of like a peppery dance on the tongue that I'm really liking. And then I get kind of some more of that sweetness on the finish showing back up. This is excellent. I'm really liking this.
Thank you. Yeah, so we launched a barrel last year. It was really young. It was we were probably a little ahead of the game on it. It was pretty grassy, and extra year in the barrel really made all the difference. It just mellowed that the grassiness out, um, and picking up some of those barrel flavors. It helped a lot, but also it kept its original flavor profile. But it needed a little bit of the barrel profile in it, to be quite honest. And it's really taken well to it, and I think it'll probably age a little better. Um, and we now have some volume of it, so we're excited. It's going to be one of our staples. We're gonna be offering it on our direct to consumer through our website nationally, just as well as the France. And so that's the best part about having some volume of each type. We can start adding it to places to sell.
Yeah. Ooh, I like this one because it's got that best of both worlds going on. The sweet, um, combined with that kind of spicy dance, peppery dance on the tongue. I'm really liking this one.
And so, knowing this was such a hard grain to work with, why is it that you decided to really push through and make it happen?
I think that's the piece that I like personally to do. We now are in our eighth or ninth grain, and hearing the challenges of some companies to use it. I like this farmer. So this is grown also in the Palouse in Endicott, Washington. Uh, it's grown through a company or a group called Palouse Heritage, and they grow uh, two ancient grains we have. There are purple Egyptian and the Scots Bear. And he also grows some heritage rye and wheat and corn. And he's pretty much a seed a seller. So he produces all the core seed, and then he licenses it in his area to grow it. Um, I think what I like about this particular farmer, he's really progressive. He loves the fact that he's doing some. He'll probably be organic here in the next year for most of his grains, um, but he's got something that is extremely unique. He's been sourcing some of the most rare grains in the planet and now growing them in Washington State, which is for me, uh, is why we're doing it, right? This is finding these gems and the history behind a lot of these barleys are so cool. I mean, knowing the history of this particular, I think they consider it a land race grain, or so that the term is, and that the lineage behind it is very easy to tell a story when you're in a tasting room and people levitate towards interesting stories.
Yeah.
And I personally, that's my favorite part about telling stories, just having a storyline about a particular barley. We can talk about the farmer, we can talk about the malting process, we can talk about the history of the grain, where it dates back to, which civilizations used it, and how important it was for the human race that they were able to cultivate something and feed their animals and so forth.
That's a great story. Mm. Yeah, that is great in glass side. I'm absolutely loving that one. You got your last little bit there, Dave. You mind if we go to the full?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I think that was my favorite in the first interview. This is the one that's got a little bit more bite, right?
Yes. So full pint is an Oregon State University developed barley. It's been around for over a decade. Um, this particular farm we've bought from for the past 8 seasons. And unfortunately, they just sold the farm. So this will be a limited run for the next 4 years. So, well, not limited. We have enough barley for a while, but I mean, we have enough farrels. But after 4 years, this year we'll be moving to a new varietal that's a hybrid of this. Oregon State developed another barley called Oregon Promise, which is the one that will replace this. But Bull Pint is grown here in Oregon, Madras, Oregon, Mecca grade malts. They were a farm that I think the grandson of the owner had gone to Oregon State, helped develop this while he was in school, and then took it home. It's grown at a few other locations, but we're gonna end up moving on from it. Not because we don't like it. It's just that I think it'll have run its pass, and 10 years worth of something is pretty good. Um, and then having a new varietal that has a little bit of it in it is kind of nice transition. Um, but this one to me is a really interesting progression. So as it's younger, it's really spicy, peppery. And I would say as a new make, it's crazy, crazy black pepper. But as it ages in the barrel, it becomes softer and softer, and the pepper fades. And I'm not sure if this is a 5 year, 5 month. I can't remember what it is. Um, we've now I think our average is like 5/8, 5 or 6 years in this one now. Um, it's it's really coming on strong once it reaches about a 5.5 year in the new oak. It's 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 people are loving it because it's highly sweet with a milder pepper finish. Um, I think that this one could age quite a while if we did it. Well, we're launching this year an 8.5 year full pint, but we're gonna finish it in cognac.
It's fun.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. That'll be our club release this summer. It's a 1 barrel. It was our second barrel we produced. We aged it, and this could age for quite a while, but it's a half a barrel left. So I want to sell.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's 13.5 years is great. When it's done. So and it'll be our first single barrel finished release. And we're gonna do a stave finish, not a full barrel, because it's just not enough. So we ended up buying a new one of the modern cooperage stainless tanks, and we're gonna try that for a couple of releases here in the next year. Um, just to try to see how we like that way of finishing. Um, we like the idea of it being small like we are. We think we can be really flexible. So that's the unique part of it. And I have very little space for that right now, and we're crammed to the ceiling here. So having something small that we can play with is a key thing. Guys.
Now,
Anyway, so this good back to this barley. Um, to me, this is my favorite barley on the table because of the range of flavors. I think I personally like a little bit sweeter at first, but I love the pepper finish. I like Manhattans in a cocktail. This makes an amazing Manhattan. And it also, to me, in a cask strength, that pepper note, it really comes through. Um, what we find is, when you're selling only single malt and you're talking to 1,000 people at an event, somebody says, "Do you have any rye?" And I say, "Yes." "No." "I pour this," and they're like, "Oh yeah," like if they're rye fans, they love this part. Yes, this barley translates to it. They levitate towards the sweetness, but they love that pepper finish.
Yeah, I like the juxtaposition for sure. I get some of that sweetness up front. It's kind of bready, but then also, yeah, kind of more like a vanilla-y. And then I get some of that cracker note, and then it moves into like a chocolatey aspect, and
Yep.
kind of on the finish. But yes, on that finish, you do get that pepperiness that's really fun in that juxtaposition.
You know what cracks me up is when people are tasting this, there's about 20% of the population that cannot taste the pepper. It is a palate thing. And they will say, "Baroness, oh, it's really sharp." And I'm like, "What?" Like, nobody says that. And then it's like, "Oh, and the Baroness it's got that bite to it." I'm like, so I've discovered doing probably 10,000, maybe, I don't know, 20,000 people in the last couple of years as far as tastings go. Um, there's a certain population that they just cannot taste the pepper in this. They just think it's the sweetest, mellowest. Yep. I always tell people there's no wrong answer in tasting. If you taste it, you taste it. If you smell it, you smell it. So if somebody says to me, "It tastes like X," sure. I've learned to say yes. It's like, if you've tasted there's no wrong answer because honestly, they may have a totally different palate than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've definitely found that for ourselves too. Um, and I just want to say that, we've the two out of the three we tasted in our first interview. And I think you're really hitting your stride at this point, Mark. There's so much more developed. I mean, the age really hasn't gotten that much longer, but I think you're really refining your process. And man, this is just tasting so good. I'm really liking it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing about we will have older certain barrels. We have some Baroness that are in their 6.5. They'll be 7 years, and then certainly the full pint we have an 8.5 year this year. We'll have a seven. We have multiple 7 barrels next year. We'll have those. We'll be, in a few years have our 10-year whiskey, but it's going to be half a whale after our 10th year anniversary. But because we're kind of selling through everything, we're just having to force ourselves to keep some barrels
Yeah.
on the back burner. But um, you know, as many distillers will tell you, it may not be your best whiskey to have a 10-year. I mean, we think our 4-year Baronesses are amazing, and when they're in the 6 to 7, they change. They're changing more towards barrel flavor than they will be about the barley. And in some cases that'll be a good thing. Um, and for us, this last 2 years, we've been working with the last 3 years now. We've been working with Talking Cedar out of Centralia, Washington. They're our main distiller. They're a native group that they're one of the largest distilleries on the West Coast. Great people to work with. We also are um, storing some of our barrels at the coast in Washington now. And so it's more like a Scotch climate, so cooler, damp. We'll lose proof versus gain proof.
Right.
So we're having to play with that. We'll have some stuff that we can go longer. Um, so we're really having to do our homework now on how much will it change, and so some of it will be like we'll age it there for several years, and then we'll bring it in here. We'll see, make sure it's here for at least a year, and anyway, it's just I think that's the fun part about what we're doing. It's that, we know what things will change a little bit, but the premise of the basis of what our ingredients are with the type of oak and the barley selections are still going to be great. It's just we think we can get a little longer uh, age statement on there. Yeah, just by what we're about to do or what we're doing now.
Now, I'm curious. I know when we talked last time, you mentioned that barrel finishing wasn't something you were really planning at that time. So obviously that's changed over the last couple of years. So what was it that changed your mind on that?
I think well, it still hasn't that much, but it's it's a request. So we want to have something for everybody, and I'll be honest. I mean, there's quite a few people that are beating us in competitions that have a finished whiskey. So we're noticing that we'll score a 93 on a double gold or whatever, and and we'll lose to somebody in interesting category because they did a Oloroso sherry or something. So I think this is our exploration of maybe trying to make it even better with something that we can control. We'll see. Like I said, we do a lot of club stuff here, and a lot of bars will ask us to do um, smaller runs. Like we can do as little as 100 bottle run and do it from a bottling line. We'll even do TTB submission for labeling, but now we can finish it in a half barrel with this system we have. So with it's with a stave finish. Um, so I think that's more of the fun um, options that we want to give our members, but also a corporate member that wants to come in and say like, I want to do a barrel pick, and I want to do everything about it. So I want to have you let's find the right barrel, but could you do a finish with this? And I'll say, yeah, of course, it's just going to cost you more, but we're happy to do it. If that's what they want, why not? And before I didn't want to have 20 barrels of finishing barrels in here. I don't have room for it, number one. And and I'm hoping this is a good answer for what we're trying to do because I've heard some good things about it. It's obviously a little extra work with TTV because the system is required to have the labeling have to be every time. I'll have to do uh, uh, like a label that says it's stave finished and not barrel finished. Because if it was just barrel finished, we wouldn't have to worry about things. So yeah, we'll make sure we do that. So.
Well, speaking of gold medals, you got a double gold medal for the Franson at American Craft Spirit Association. Dave, you want to hold that up there for your extra close mic?
There we go.
Yeah, you got the double gold for this. And so I was sure to run over to the table and get a pour of this at the grand tasting. And it certainly met all my expectations. I really like this one. So far, I think this is one of the favorites that I've tried of your products. I think it hits a little more on that sweet note, and that of course plays to my favorite
Yeah, so
profile.
Franson, this is a grower. It's out of Oregon, Eastern Oregon, La Grande, which is almost near Idaho. Um, they just decided to plant Franson as somebody offered them. This is a modern barley from the Czech Republic. This is the barley that Pilsner Urquell, the oldest Pilsner in the world. They use this barley to make their beer. So it has a pretty interesting lineage, and for me, um, I really like this whiskey. I think it's becoming my close to my new number one. Personally, I think as a sipping whiskey, it has this unbelievably smooth texture. It has a very mellow, and then as it sits, it starts to develop a cinnamony finish. Like it has this almost caramel, not cotton candy, but candy cane cinnamon, like or red hots. And the calf strength is a little stronger. But as a kid, I remember those little red hots, and or big red gums. Like to me, that's where it has this really. And this is the barley pulling it. It's just, and it's in every barrel. It's just what's exciting is how drastically different it is from Scott's Bear, Old Pine, and from Baroness. And it's the I just doing a tasting at our Saturday market here, and everybody it sold out within about an hour. We had 6 bottles, and anyway, it's like people are like, "This is amazing," and then you tell them it's rare. It's like I only ever go a bottle. They all want to buy it. So, but what to me is it just fits in the lineup. So this is as you're doing a taste of it, as you're doing a tasting, um, you want to have that nuance of this, and this, for me, um, when I mentioned earlier about our club, um, they can pick any barrels. Um, so they picked a couple ancient grains and they finished it like they had a little bit of this, the Franson at the end really brought in some characters of our Summit blend. Um, so it was quite interesting that what they chose was they really wanted to go with a really quite unique blend for us in particular. We haven't done that yet. So, um, yeah, anyway, I love this. This is going to be one of our top whiskeys for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I know when we were at the ASCA, I think I told every single person I talked to go make sure they tried it while it was still there. And everyone we talked to just said it was amazing. So, now I guess that brings me, everyone we talked to mentions you as a wealth of knowledge, and they just talk about how great of a job you're doing up there. So you're definitely recognized in the industry for what you're doing, and I think that shows in this product. I mean, you're doing good work
No,
there.
it's funny at that ACSA. I always take pride in talking about my whiskeys and having conversations, and it kind of cracked me up. I was talking to somebody that I've known for a while. He goes, "I know who you are. I know what you do, and you don't need to sell me on your whiskey." It's like, oh, but I'm just excited about telling you about this barley spaghetti. He's like, "Yeah, I know it," and I was like, "Well, I like that. That's what I like about my whiskey is that I know the farmers and I know who these people are. This is what I'm doing." And anyway, it cracks me up. That's what I really like this to talk about. So, and even with distillers, I'm like, hey, if you want information from the grower, sure, he'd love to sell you some barley. So, and that's what I want to always lead with is like I'm an open book. If you want to ask me something, sure, there's the information. And I always get a kick out of people. Oh, we have this secret recipe and it's been passed down for generations. I'm like, whatever. That's just, I guess it's for some people, but I think for me, it's really the discovery. I'm hoping that if it's not us or, Westland out of Seattle or Stranahan or somebody that's really doing a lot of exploration in barleys, that, that they find the one that's going to be their what maybe have taken people 200 years. I just think they're missing the boat because there's just so much to offer in these really awesome lineage of barleys that I don't think we'll ever want to do like a flagship. I think that flagship has to be regularly changed, and it has to be shown that this is different this year because the barley was exceptional or this really blended well with this. And I think that's what's fun about where we're headed is that in a few years our flagship will be a blend with no question. We will know that these 3 or 4 barleys are outstanding together, and that these other 3 or 4 barleys will complete another really different flavor profile, but it will bring in all those great flavors. So that's where we're headed. Right now we're still focused on finding these amazing barleys, and um, we just planted something recently this last year. We just distilled it, and it's going to be out in about 4 years. But it's the hard things that are going to be good. I think I'll tell you a little bit about it in a minute.
Yeah, and we tried a small batch blend in our first interview with you, Mark. Have you stuck with the same mash bill for your small batch blends, or are you kind of
Yeah, because we have so much of the 2 varietals, because it's been a thing. People like that variety. It won, ADI 3 years ago for best in category. So they do quite well together. So it won't be that way. So we will have other small batches. We'll have a small batch where it'll be something else, maybe 3 or 4. But we're actually going to lean towards this fall. We're going to roll out our reserve, and our reserve will be our top whiskeys that we feel. It won't be our club release, but it'll be like what we feel this year, the top barrels, and a blend that will um, represent like what our best is. So that will be rolled out. Initially, it'll be rolled out at we'll do probably 400 or 500 bottles of it, and then going forward, we'll probably as we roll out nationally with some of our distribution. We'll probably be able to get a couple spots on the shelf, so or 1 or 2 if we're lucky, and we want it to be our best. So that's kind of been our focus, is that we need to have that nationally. The kind of limitation will be we'll make sure it's our top whiskeys.
man? I am loving this, France, and I get kind of like a maybe like a plum or like a plum jelly or something like that on the taste, and then I get that nice maltiness coming in. It's sort of desserty, and then yeah, I agree at the end there is and when I hear cinnamon, sometimes it scares me off a little bit because I'm thinking, ooh, I'm gonna get like a cinnamon burn, but it's really not that. It's sans burn, and it's more just those flavor components of the cinnamon I'm getting. This is doing it for me. Yeah, this is not that burn. Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah. Okay. Well, I got a little bit left in my glass here, Dave. Do you want to start pouring up our last sample, the purple, Egyptian? And we got to talk about this last time, but so this is like one of the precursors, right? In barley, a holus barley, like 5,000 BC, you were talking.
7,000 BC says dates
Wow.
back. Yeah, so it dates back. It's from Ethiopia, the highlands. The best thing about knowing about barley, so there's 2 ancient areas of growing. One is the highlands of Ethiopia. The other is in Tibet, the plateau. That they're both around 7,000 feet up. A lot of what we have is grains and coffee and wheat have come from these areas globally. Everything has kind of been pushed out from there. So knowing that this is they call it purple Egyptian because it dates back to the pharaohs and the first beer making in Egypt. Egypt used to control Ethiopia, back then. So it was, a black river, a black Nile barley. And to me, it's a holus barley. The fact that it's a black barley in bread or grain is really healthy, high antioxidants, very high protein. Um, Makes it extremely difficult to malt. High protein barleys are really difficult to malt. So um, in this case, the farmer always wanted to malt it as well as sell its shreds. So some of his farm he has to irrigate. So when you irrigate barley, it'll actually increase the starch in it, which is what you want to be able to malt. And he does it just enough to get it to sprout. Um, this is the most tricky barley to date that we've used. It's really ununiform. This next year they just bought a color sorter, so that's kind of nice. There'll be a lot more plump, and they'll be able to separate out a lot of the stuff that's in there. But or even grain size. To me, this is a barley that is so unique. This is why we tell people to try it last in a tasting. To me, it's the I've had a couple of whiskeys, over the last probably 30 years of trying whiskeys, that have a floral note. This is one of them. to me, this floralness is like potpourri in a glass. It's like I always tell people it's a Christmas whiskey because it smells like Christmas, but it has this unbelievable like Northern African spices. It's not sweet. Is I in my opinion, this is um it has the floral notes to start, but it has this spicy kind of characteristics, allspice and cardamoms and things you don't taste in whiskey. And it's what I get excited about with trying to find a unicorn of barleys. I don't know if this is it or not. I don't think it is it. I just think this completely opens up what spectrums you think you have in single malt. And everybody that I know that tries this whiskey, it's not a love relationship with it. It's not a hate relationship with it. It is, wow, how different this is. Some people love this to death. Other people will be like, yeah, it's not for me. But I think it's like what is special about it is the fact that it is so radically different. And that is what's interesting to me is that some of the most prolific tasters in the world will try this and be like, oh, it's got some interesting notes to it. Sadly, some people think it's a fault when they're tasting it, and it's not a fault. This is truly unique. But it's the characteristic. And for us to make this happen, it's the barley's tough to grow. It's a crappy yielding product. That's why people don't use it. It is very high protein, so it doesn't malt very well. When you distill it, you have to mash it like a powder, and it has to be on grain, which most systems, if they're not ready for on grain distillation, it will clog your systems. It'll be a terrible system. It will be a disaster for most people. So we figured it out. So we were lucky. We've been working this with our second or third year, the third year distillation, and have refined it ever since. And we've done a couple of options. We've done it off grain and on grain. The on grain always tastes more interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the power of suggestion of that being a purple label or whatever, but I get like a blackberry or a blueberry, those like anthocyanin type notes in the whiskey, and that, like I said, is really unique to whiskey. You don't get that from a lot of different products. So this is the fun one for sure, both the story behind it and it being an ancient grain like that, but yeah, just having that uniqueness to the grain and to the whiskey itself is really fun.
Yeah, that blend.
I think this rounds out a really great taste of different levels. So when you're doing a tasting like we do, we start out with a Baroness, which is usually pretty mellow. We could probably start out with the Franzen now, I think, to a degree. It has a little bit of the spiciness, um, but you're taking people through a journey of a modern barley to a heritage barley to an ancient grain. And I think that's where people are always like really fascinated when they're trying this because they just haven't had this before. And there's a reason for it. There's very little of it in the world to produce and even less that are malted for beer or whiskey or distillation. So that's the exciting part. I think this is, we have some really other future barleys coming out. Another black barley in a couple years called Tibetan 37. It's a 2 million year old wild barley from Tibet that the farmer got from one of the universities here from a seed vault. Took him 8 years to replicate. Now he's producing 150,000 pounds of barley a year. Well, almost all of it goes to a couple of big bakers that are doing ancient breads. We're the only ones to distill it. It's the most expensive barley we've ever purchased, and it is going to be interesting. It's got to be interesting. When we distill it, it tastes like um, pickle juice. I mean, it was really kind of radically different, but I think that's going to make an interesting whiskey, and that's what's important is that it is different than everything. But I always think the funkier it is when it comes out as this new make, it's going to produce quite well, and especially with the barrels we're putting in, it's going to do really well. But we only getting 5 barrels a year, so it's always going to be a rare thing. And for us, 5 barrels can, for doing 37 states at some point, it's like there's no chance of it. It's going to be an expensive whiskey. That's fine. It is what it is. But that one is quite exciting coming down the road. And why I say that is because it's very similar to this. It's an ancient grain, well, super ancient grain. Um, and it also is a black barley. And again, this grower had to basically, he tried it one year, we couldn't malt it. And the next year he had one of his farmers that had to irrigate. And so uh, he listened and got it figured out. So it was kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the purple Egyptian again. So this is the same grower as the Scots Bear, Heritage Blues. Don Schulman's a really great representative for those guys. Whenever I call him, he's there to talk about stuff. I hope someday we'll do a good class at ACSA or one of the national meetings, because I went to a meeting a few years back, and I was listening to a bunch of malters say, we got all these malts, and then somebody asked, what does it taste like? And they don't have a clue. They're like, I sell you malt that is, yeah, reasonable, but they don't really know what it's going to taste like in a whiskey. And I can tell you that's what we're doing. And I think that's where, when people are doing a lot of exploration and trying to find the right, barley for them or for their platform, this is where I felt about my background in coffee, is that the same thing was in coffee 30 years ago. No, none of the farmers had a clue what their coffee tasted like. And it wasn't until people went there and said, hey, I'm producing this. I need to know what it tastes like. You need to know what it tastes like so you can sell it to people like me. And our farmers now, I'm sending them bottles, and they're like, oh, wow, this is good. I made this. Yeah, you grew it. What I mean? Like, they're really into it. So that's the fun part about it. And with Blues Heritage, that group, they're so into what they're doing. And, he's probably going to help me sell most of Washington State with his whiskey, because he's like, I'm going to sell it everywhere. I'm like, all right.
In your research and development process, do you ever take any of these grains and like make a bread or a cracker out of it?
We don't have to, because Don, who's he's with Blues Heritage, he co-owns a company in Spokane called, I think it's called the Bread Lab. But they make beer and they make bread from all these things. So wait, it's your child. Yeah, exactly. So we haven't, I haven't done anything with my group here yet. I will when we, probably by the end of the year, we'll probably order some bread and some beer. There's a in Northern California, and I think it's in Napa area. There's a brewer there that brews beer with all these beers, and he sells it by the bottle. So you can buy a purple Egyptian beer, you can buy a Scots beer. So it's kind of interesting. And I think that doing tastings like that, from our distillation to a brewed beer, I think that will be a fun maybe app for some.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the good thing about the Link Malts, our malting house that we primarily use. They're a micro malter up in Spokane. They produce a lot of specialty grains. And um, just to give you some perspective on, they're so into what we're doing that I've introduced them to a couple of really rare barleys. They're just like, bring it on, Mark. If you got something interesting, I just got to have enough to do this. He's been really helpful with talking to the farmers about what to prepare for. So just to give you some kind of insight into what some of the stuff that's coming, Oregon State created the barley that you like, the full pint. They've done, hundreds of barleys for all around the world. And Pat Hayes, Dr. Hayes, I would consider him like the guru of barley for the last several decades. If anybody in fermentation science, they all know Pat. And so one of his projects for basically his entire career was hybridization of all these different barleys. So he got us in touch with a batch of about 1,000 pounds of this barley that he planted, or he helped do. It's 700 varieties all built into one batch. And so it's we call it Oregon Naked Barley, because it's a 6-row, 2-row. It's, there's whole list, there's barley. So this year was the first year, and we found a farmer willing to do it, and he said, I'll plant 10 acres of it. We got a pretty good yield out of it. We filmed the entire process. It'll be out sometime in the next couple of years. We filmed it from seeding to second or midsummer, and then farm or of come cutting it down or harvesting it, and then we filmed which is not it's hard to do because it was mechanical uh, malting. So, but we've done it all, and we're trying to do this. And I got this great email from Pat and said, Mark, just think about this. In 10,000 years of humans making beer, you're the first to do this. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. It's also the most difficult thing you'll probably ever do because um, the malting process was brutal. 20% didn't malt. So we ended up having to distill an 80% malted and a 20% unmalted. Um, and we had 2 distillers that did it. One really small distiller we've been using forever, Stone Barn. He had struggled with it because he didn't do the right prep for it. And then Talking Cedar, and they just said, "Oh, this is great. We love it. This is how we prep for it. How they distill it properly the first way." Uh, anyway, and they're like, "Yeah, it's way easier than purple Egyptian." So we were happy. So and I think that's the point. So they're like, um, I think we don't know what it's going to be like, but the exciting piece of it was this life's work of one of the I think legendary barley developers in the world. This is a life's work of somebody, and what was interesting is how quickly everybody said, "Yes, let me help. I want to be in part of that." And all of our partners jumped on board really quickly. And having a farmer say, "If you had one grain to grow, what would it be?" And I said, "Well, I want it to be unique. I want it to be a worldwide exclusive, and I want it to be interesting. So let's figure that out." And so now, as a tiny company like us, having somebody wanting to grow for us something unique that's untested and extremely challenging. That's what makes things exciting about where we're headed and how uh, I think it's not fast. It's going to be a slow go, but it's exciting. I mean, for where we think we can help American single malt go is the expiration of these barley varieties.
And so how long has that one been in the barrel?
Uh, 2 months.
Okay.
I mean, it's still pretty fresh. Yeah, we just grew it. It was harvested in August. Uh, it was malted over the fall, and then they distilled it, I think, in February, March. So it's pretty new. So yeah, we won't really know. We've tasted the new make, and it's going to be good. I think it's just we won't know until for basically the first year. Until that's we'll get some samples of it, and then by next year we've already planned for another 5 barrels at minimum. We did 7 barrels because of the volume of process. So we're not going to have them grow this next year because we have enough barley from the first year. So we have enough for 2 years of barley. So and our minimum runs are about I think 7 or 8,000 pounds for this vaulting process. Normally it's about 16,000, which is 12 barrels or 30 barrels. We didn't want to go that big, so we're trying to keep it pretty modest right now.
What's exciting?
And that's kind of crazy to just like do some rough mental math of the volume that it takes to get that few barrels.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, the average barrel it takes about 1,000 to 1,100 pounds of barley. Some of the barleys are a lot more. They're 1,500 pounds a batch. So I mean, when you're doing your math on some of these barleys are $1.80 a piece versus corn is, what is corn these days? 12 cents or 15 cents. I don't know. Wow, pretty too.
Yeah.
Subsidized corn is really cheap. So yeah, I mean, this is the hard part about where we are and what we're trying to do and not worry about how cheap barrels can be to buy. That'd be the easy thing to do, and I don't do things easy. So I think the best part about, I mean, our barrels are running us well over $3,000 to make. So could buy the best barrels we can get. They're 3-year extended age, from Seguin, which is, we're only one of a handful of, I think maybe 2 or 3 they allow to buy as distillers extended age barrels. Most of it goes to their wineries. And they don't char a lot of them because they think I'm screwing it up, but I think it's awesome. I think it's why our whiskeys are always so smooth. But yeah, it's really kind of fun that that it's like this. We're in the zone right now where the next 2 years is going to be mind blowing for us. I think how even when we're starting to blend, how good it's going to get. Like that's the exciting part. So I think we have such an opportunity to have a range of stuff. And sadly, I've got, when I go to a farmer's market, I already got like 10 bottles on the table and people want to try them all. I'm like, oh, well, you can pick 4 or 5. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite, we're in for a handful of whiskeys for sure. So yeah. And the good thing about it is I think that's why people like us, because they can come in and do a tasting and it's new. There's something exciting. And especially having finished whiskeys, the ability to finish whiskeys could be fun.
Yeah. So when we bring you back on for episode 250, what do you think the most exciting thing you're gonna have to talk about is? And I guess what is that gonna be like 3 years from now?
Yeah, I think it could be this the new couple of varietals that you've got are the extremely ancient, Tibet barley. That's an exclusive to us. I don't know anybody else that's done it. Certainly the Pat's barley, the Oregon Naked barley. Um, that'll be interesting. I think in 2 or 3 years from now, we'll have had some amazing transformations of our blends. Probably our reserve will be really well underway, and it will. I would imagine it being fastly becoming our number one seller, and we haven't even made it yet. That's the thing I think is you see it, it's coming, and yeah, it's just going to be one of those fun things that we think that with the stock we have and all of the varieties we've put together, we feel it's going to be front and center 10 for years from now.
Very well. And you guys got your start in 2017, so we're coming up to your 10-year anniversary. So
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, basically a year and a half from now, it'll be, we were end of the year 2017.
Okay.
What? Yeah, sadly we won't have our 10-year, so sold out most of it. But we are this summer launching our 8.5-year full pint, finished in cognac staves. So I'm excited about that. And most of our membership is too, because it was a used bourbon barrel. It wasn't a new oak, so it wasn't overly oaked, and I think that gives us some options here. So yeah, I think that this 10-year thing is quite interesting, considering I still have a coffee company and I run that day to day, and this is a hobby.
It's your side hustle. Making me feel lazy over here, Mark.
But I don't have kids, so I work a lot. So so that's the thing, and I really don't. I honestly, we're lucky in Oregon. I say to a degree, we have our issues, of course, but from a distiller's perspective, we're able to sample at farmers markets. We're able to sell bottles at farmers markets, and we have a little bit of a tax decrease, even in a control state as Oregon is. But it does allow us to sample and grow a brand through sampling to the masses. And to me, my favorite thing I do in life right now is on a weekend when I should be resting or chilling out, I enjoy talking to, 1,000 or 2 people about my whiskey every day. And it's like, and as soon as I finish this, I'm heading back there to close it out. And the last hour will be there. But it's just, I think that's the best thing about being in a new thing. Like every new business owner is always passionate about what they're doing. But in this case, it's like, it's exciting, it's fun, and it certainly doesn't hurt that the product's decent. I mean, my sister, who's part of my business now, she's like, this would be totally different if your product sucked. Yes. I mean, it's like, but that's the fun part about it. When we first, almost 10 years ago, the first year out, we were sampling the whiskey. I'd always get a couple bottles of from a barrel. And then every 6 months I was saving those. And, after the first year was, it's pretty good. And then the second year, like, wow, I would buy this. This is really good. And then I always thought my friends were giving me a bunch of crap because they were getting free whiskey at my house. And it was like, and then the third year, like, you need to start selling this. This is really good. But it's free whiskey. I didn't really have anybody test it. And then, our 4th year, when we launched with a 4-year, 7-month Baroness, and it won ASCA. I mean, you can't ask for a better start than that, right? And then took, I think, whatever, it was one of the top whiskeys, the 12 whiskeys of that year. And it was just like, that was our start. Like, oh, wow, that was unusual. And now I just think we're not pushing anything. We're just really just trying to continue on the path. And I think that's the fun part about where we're headed, is that if it's not fun, we're not going to do it. That's for sure. And if people aren't enjoying it, or they don't have a good response to it, we'll stop that pretty quickly. Um, and I think, you know, every single barrel we've had so far, I've had one dud, like that one out of one barrel out of last, I don't know what it's been, I don't know, 100 barrels we've bottled. Um, and one dud means it's like, it wasn't terrible. It was just like, it was just not up to par. So we ended up blending it with our a bigger batch, a small batch, and it still turned out great. It's like, it was like one of those things like, oh boy, So we've been lucky, and knock on wood, that we've picked some great Farleys. And I think I've had some amazing people that have consulted over the years that have given us the right path in terms of finding a niche, and finding my niche is the growing side, and finding farmers that want to partner because they want to be promoted. They don't care that I want people to buy from them. And I think that's the best thing about a collaborative brand, is that whether it's tasting at an event, talking to other distillers, like I've had 3 distillers that joined my club because they're doing a single malt. And I'm like, pick one of them, and then they're doing it. So I'm like, that's great. I always feel like if Oregon developed a barley here that was outstanding, and 9 out of 10 people did it nationally, we'd become a hub for something like we've done with wine with our Pinots, right? And California Cabs is one. When something hits, you want it to hit, and you become part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that's what the hope is for this place.
Well, you definitely have the connection to people, and you have the connection to place. You are certainly representing the Western United States, Pacific Northwest, and shoot, America in general, just, with the American single malt category in and of itself. Mark, you're definitely crushing it. And so I was just wondering, as we kind of round it out, if you had any final thoughts for the episode before we close this baby out.
Oh, congratulations! 100's a big deal. Starting out where we started, the first go around. I mean, it's like anything, it just tells you I'm getting older. And you're getting older. It's like, I was telling my wife, she's like, you're a year away from 60. I'm like, oh man, shit. So I wish I would have done this, instead of, starting this 15 years ago, where I started doing research and stuff. I wish I would have done this for 30 years and copy for 30 years, because I just could imagine where we would be with this at 30-year mark. But it's also something fun to look forward to, as we continue the exploration. I think, just like you guys are finding great distillers, I think that's the great journey about West Coast. This is where I think I like um, passionate people on the West Coast. The West Coast is a unique area to live. We all celebrate diversity. We celebrate the outdoors. We celebrate the Pacific Ocean, and everything that comes about. The bountiful thing about the West Coast is that people have moved here for the right reasons, because we produce some of the most amazing beverages in the world. I mean, seriously, I feel this, from coffee to tea to whiskey to beers to wines. We have it all in the Northwest, as well as California. So that's why I think the rest of the country is jealous, because we have such great chill out here. If we're not so uptight, and we let people be people. That's the beauty of West Coast. So Distilling the West is obviously you're always finding great people to listen to, and I like listening to your stuff. So appreciate it.
Yeah, gosh, we appreciate the heck out of you, Mark, and what you're doing out there, and all the samples and everything. It was great to connect with you at American Craft Spirits Association. We're super glad to be doing it on episode 100 with you. And, I think that speaks to, we're hoping that our listeners go back, listen to episode 2, interview 1 with you. We may have come a a long way in our gear and our sound and everything like that, but we're still trying to represent for the Western United States and all the amazing stuff that you're doing and all the other producers out there. So cheers to Bird Creek Distillery. Cheers to episode 100. Cheers.